Welcome to Spiritual Insurgency. I'm Jason Lupo here with an exciting announcement today coming from the Boulder Valley Health Center. The summer camp that we reported on, the sex ed summer camp that we have been talking about, has been canceled. This happened a couple days ago. I have been out of town, but I think that it's important, even though we look at this and we go, oh, this is a win. This is not over, and that's why I think that this conversation is so important. And I also want to bring up some other facets of this conversation and why they canceled. The note from Boulder Valley Health Center says, and I quote, due to safety concerns, the Boulder Valley Health Center, CU Boulder's Renee Crown Wellness Institute's sex ed summer camp for 5th through 8th graders has been canceled. The camp aimed to provide age-appropriate sex education to prevent unwanted pregnancies and emphasize the importance of sexual health for overall well-being. Any extrapolation about the camp's intentions is incorrect. This is so critical because once again, here they are, they're pointing the finger back at conservatives around the nation, those that want to protect children in this country, and they're using this excuse that for some reason these conservative groups that are fighting things like this are dangerous. They're not dangerous to any individual. There's no threat on life. This is not some ploy by radical leftist groups who are literally taking to the streets, destroying businesses, destroying people's lives, killing the innocent. Was there probably going to be protests? I hope so. But was it going to threaten the safety of the kids that were involved in the camp? No. Was it going to threaten the safety of the individuals that were trying to perpetrate this? No. This is once again an attack on conservative groups around the country that are fighting for the life and the safety of our youth. And I think that a lot of what happened and a lot of how we got to this point came about by kind of an expose piece from Scott Shamblin. You can find him on Twitter, Scott P. Shamblin, Shamblin, on Twitter. He's a activist here in Colorado. He attended the pre-camp information meeting. We're going to roll this clip. When CU Boulder and Boulder Valley Health Center says that any extrapolation about the camp's intentions is incorrect, they tell you exactly what the intention is in this video. There's no guessing. There's no games being played. There's no attempt to make this seem more radical than it is. This is by far the most radical sex education camp we've ever seen. If you've even ever seen a sex education summer camp, because I've never seen one come about. So let's roll this video from Scott Shamblin.
So our primary themes during sex ed summer camp that will be existing every single day along the way are power, justice, consent, and media literacy. And so these will be rooted from disability justice and queer theory practices, and they'll be our primary threads that connect us throughout all of our lessons and activities and projects that we will all be developing together. Queer theory of education, a huge part of it is actually centering the most marginalized. And so making sure that our lessons feel welcome to queer people, to trans people, to everybody in the space. We did ultimately decide that the official name is Sex Ed Summer Camp because we want to kind of start to disrupt this idea of it being something that we shouldn't be talking about or like uncomfortable to share. We are going to have pre-surveys and post-surveys. And so some of the questions will be like, hey, like how comfortable are you talking to your caregiver, or vice versa for the caregiver, your young human, about sex, bodies, and relationships. And then throughout the 2 weeks, we will then ask a similar question at the end and see how that changes. Some of the art projects that you'll get to actually like see at the end of the camp are different like galaxies of identity that we are creating. We are planning on like opening up conversations about like sexualized media.
During our media day, we're going to create a piece of media that actually sends the messages about consent and bodies and relationships. One of the most exciting things about this camp is that we get to root it in justice. Being rooted in justice means that our conversations really center around there's no wrong way to have a body. As long as nothing hurts, everything about you is amazing, and you get to decide what you do with your body and what you don't do.
We'll also be talking about like condoms and dental dams and tools that people can use to actually like act as the barrier between the bodies. Absolutely. In that week before camp, we can definitely like bring some of the tools that like our campers will get to see and actually like play with and experience. We're planning on bringing all of the different like contraceptive methods and a lot of the tools that are used for preventing sexually transmitted infections, as well as puberty tools in person for campers to actually touch and play with and like demystify in a way as well. So we can do that for caregivers too. It could be kind of a fun opening activity to get to know each other as well. So that final day, that Friday, we're going to host a big party, and all campers will get to invite their caregivers and any friends that they feel comfortable inviting. And they get to show off some of their skills, some of their knowledge, some of the cool things that they got to learn throughout the 2 weeks. So they get to do a lot of that creation and development themselves. Yes, absolutely. We talk about condoms, where to get condoms, how to use condoms, and all of the different steps. We actually have a whole activity that is like putting all of the steps on how to use a condom in the correct order, because there's actually over 12 steps. And most young people are really shocked by that number. And so, absolutely. And we also, every single day, will be talking about the resources that people can use to gather more information about that day's topic. And so, on the day that we discuss condoms, it will be absolutely about like where can people get either free or pay for condoms.
So, one of the ideas for a project at the end of the 2 weeks during the party would be that the young people actually would get, and the campers would get to show you all what they learned in terms of like the hands-on stuff too.
Our clinic does gender affirming care services. We do these services for 16 and 17-year-olds, so it'd be like a little bit later. But these are definitely conversations that all of us are comfortable having and have had before. And we can also connect them with other resources that might be able to more directly help them with the age that they are at. But absolutely, we will make sure that both you and your young person feel like we can make sure that we have some sort of communication about making sure that that those plans come to fruition in a way that feels right to feels right to your camper. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yeah. We also want to make sure that you know that there's an opportunity to get a gift card if you fill out the survey.
So as you can see, there's no extrapolating anything. They tell you exactly in the video what they are doing in this camp, and it's utterly disturbing. But there's some other key points that we have to talk about here. The first is that they reference this introduction, the Surgeon General's call to action to promote sexual health and responsible sexual behavior, NCBI bookshelf. If we go to that link, the first thing that we notice, the first thing that has to be pointed out is this is a Surgeon General's call to action from 2001, grossly outdated. This is grossly outdated information from July of 2001. This is, just to give you context, before 9/11. I mean, this is way old information. In the Surgeon General's guidelines, here is what it says. The Surgeon General's public health priorities include: number one, a balanced community health system grounded at the community level and encompassing the promotion of healthy lifestyles, including responsible sexual behavior and provisions of equitable access to healthcare services. Number two, the elimination of racial and ethnic disparities in health. And three, a global approach to public health and the exchange of information and technology with other nations to improve world health. This is the Surgeon General's guidelines from 2001. For those of you not doing math, we have 24 years of research that has taken place from this original Surgeon General guidelines, and a huge debate about what sexual education should look like in the United States and who should be doing that education. We in Colorado passed the comprehensive sex education program. This coming from the Colorado Department of Public Health, CHSE program description. The Colorado General Assembly passed a comprehensive human sexuality education bill, HB 19-1032, in May of 2019. This bill clarifies content requirements for public schools that offer comprehensive health sexuality education and prohibit instruction from explicitly or implicitly teaching or endorsing religious ideology or sectarian tenets or doctrines, using shame-based or stigmatizing language or instructional tools, employing gender norms or gender stereotypes, or excluding the relationship or sexual experiences of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender individuals. HB 19-1032 funds CDPHE's Sexual Education Grant Program for the first time. Purpose of these funds is to support schools and school districts to implement comprehensive human sexuality education content that is medically accurate, culturally sensitive, and represents positive youth development principles. Comprehensive Human Sexuality Education program at CDPHE will manage this grant program and will provide technical assistance, support, and training for schools and school districts in collaboration with community partners. Basically, what this is saying is that the idea that abstinence-only sexual education is not to be allowed, and that any school that chooses to teach sex education must teach it in a comprehensive fashion, which means including all of these in your child's sex education. With that being said, schools had the option to opt out, meaning they just would not teach sexual education at all because they didn't want to implement this comprehensive fashion. And what that leads to is the fact that no sex education is being taught in the majority of Colorado school districts right now because parents said, there's no way you're teaching this to our children. But meanwhile, we have parents that are turning a blind eye to what is going on because they're falling back asleep. This is what happens. This was in 2019. We're 6 years removed from the passage of this. At some point, when the school boards are no longer conservative because they moved conservative during COVID and they moved conservative because of this, but if the liberals were to win back seats on these school boards, they will pass this in their school districts, which means comprehensive sex education will come back to our school districts all throughout Colorado as soon as the liberals get their hands back on the school boards. We cannot fall asleep. This is an off-year cycle, and in off-year cycles in many states around the country, and especially in Colorado, that means that we are voting on school board members in November. We're going to be voting for school boards across this nation this year, which means we have to make sure that we continue to place conservatives in place, because this isn't just Colorado. This is happening all over the place. Colorado is just the mecca of introducing this nonsense, just like the mecca of introducing AI bills, the mecca of introducing now bills that will limit free speech and give social media companies the power to have to determine whether or not your speech is allowable and then report it to the government entities that can then shut you down. This is a huge attack, and it's all happening in Colorado, and what happens in Colorado will go to the rest of the country. All the eyes were on California for a long time. Meanwhile, Colorado is passing the most egregious bills we've seen. The transgender dead naming bill that's taking place, it's currently in the Senate right now, with testifying happening this week and soon to be voted on as the session comes to a close. This is not over. This is not over. When we fall back asleep, when we stop paying attention, they're going to bring back sex education summer camps. They're going to put comprehensive sex education into our schools. And this has nothing to do with the guidelines put in place by the Surgeon General in 2001, who mentioned none of this, who didn't mention anything about why we need to talk about sexualized media with youth at a summer camp, why we need to talk about playing with yourself at these camps, playing with yourself in the classroom about all sorts of sexual activity that has nothing to do with the safety of kids, but rather the inclusion of children that claim to be something that they were not born as. Because school districts and schools across the country and parents have bought into this culture that it's okay to play into the games of the radical left, that it's okay to allow your children to want to transition themselves, to want to pretend to be the opposite gender. This is not over. I know that this is a huge win, and it seems like a huge win, and you know what? It is a big win, and we should celebrate the win. But just like Roe versus Wade, as we've talked about, there is no win. Like, this is a long-term war, and we haven't even won the battle. We just think that we have. But if you look at what's happening after Roe versus Wade, we haven't won any battles. We're not even closer to winning the war. In fact, it only strengthened a lot of the abortion providers across the country in a lot of these states, like the state of Colorado, Illinois, California, Washington, Oregon. These states have not seen a positive movement in terms of the pro-life movement. And we're about to see the same thing happen with the sexualization of our children and the growth of the LGBTQ plus movement. This has to end, and it has to stop. And so, yes, we should celebrate this minor win, but we cannot fall asleep, and I hope you will join me in making sure that we do not fall asleep at all in this state as they continue to inch closer to taking your children in this state. Thank you for joining us. Join us every day. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We could use your support. Join us every day at 3 p.m. for more news. We're going to be talking about the immigration raid in Colorado Springs tomorrow, what the mayor has to say, the county commissioners, the sheriff's department has to say about that raid, with Trump promising more coming down the pipeline in the state of Colorado as we face a giant increase in the amount of foreign gang and organized crime activity that's taking place in this state and across the country. Join us tomorrow at 3 p.m. Thank you for joining us.